Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Deb. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to Interfaith Community Sanctuary. So this is our fourth service in the month of September, and if you are feeling particularly well balanced today, a good sense of equilibrium, it's because a few hours ago we had our autumnal equinox, and the center of the sun shone directly over our equator. So autumn is here. So thank all you well-balanced people for being here today. I appreciate it. And it's great to have you all be with me as, again, we seek to deepen our understanding of and our commitment to our discernment for this year, making a home for the mystic heart. And it's my hope, as always, that together we can continue to explore ways that we can help one another with our spiritual path of contemplation and self-surrender, so that each of us may be able to find that home for the mystic heart, that unity with the divine, which is at the center of making a home for the mystic heart. And this month we're going to be looking at how mindfulness and how mindful meditation can contribute to our goal. But first, as is our tradition, we have a number of offerings that we provide each month and each week, And we start with providing an offer to our ancestors and honoring our first peoples. And this morning, Zach has been so kind as to volunteer.
Morning, everybody. Good to see you. Good to be with you, as he says. So yeah, as we do this morning, I'll kind of lead us in a little bit of a creative imagination task, I guess, or task is a good word, to reach back. So if you all just take a moment, take a deep breath, maybe close your eyes if it feels well to you, feels okay to you. But think about, with your creative imagination and your memory, think about your near ancestors. Maybe they're related to you. Maybe it was your mom or your dad or your uncle, aunts, grandparents. Maybe it was someone's not related to you at all. Maybe it was someone that was like a dear teacher or a mentor. Think about those folks. Bring them here. And think about maybe the people that were those roles for those folks, those their grandparents and their uncles, aunts, mentors, teachers. Think about those folks. Maybe go a little bit farther back. Maybe you're lucky like me. I had a great-grandmother in my life that was very near and dear. Think about that generation. The people early 20th century, maybe a little bit farther back. And with your creative imagination, link that lineage of people farther and farther and farther back. Those folks who are living their life just like you're living yours, doing their best to be what they thought was the best, doing their best to make a life for them and their families and make this world a little bit better place. Keep going back farther and farther. The whole lineage, a whole line of people that we're all connected to. Those folks, they were dreaming of this moment right now. We are their dreams. So maybe thank them. Touch them with your heart and with your creative imagination. And right now we'll ask them to come and join us if they will. Support us in this moment. They're always with us. They're always there for us. For right now, with intention, we ask them to come to join us. Thank you very much. So, in addition to ancestors, we also like to endeavor to bring our intention and our memories and our thoughts with the indigenous folks. Way back with those ancestors, we were all indigenous once. Lots of us are probably not indigenous to this very spot, but we were at some point indigenous folks as well back in our lineage. In this particular location, it's the Coast Salish folks. They're still around, lots of them, lots of different tribes all up and down the coast. Right here in this very moment, or this very location here where the ICS sits, it's Duwamish land. It's unceded Duwamish land, which is it's a whole can of worms with that one. You can find that online if you search Duwamish tribe. But today, I was kind of looking at some things that we have over there, and I found one that kind of spoke to me. And so I'll read a bit of about a paragraph or so from Black Elk. Black Elk was Lakota Sioux, 1863 to 1950. He says, "Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I could tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the Spirit, and the shape of all shapes as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy." Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. That's actually one of my favorites as well. That's lovely. Another one of our offerings that we have each week is the offering to the Divine Feminine. And this is a piece we've read before. Actually, Deb read this before, but I think it's particularly apropos. It's a quote from Teresa of Avila. She's a Spanish Carmelite nun. And given the fact that this is Spanish Heritage Month, I thought it was particularly nice to quote from her. And also, she touches on our theme for this week, for this month, and that is with the breath. And so I'm going to read this very brief piece here. She says, "This magnificent refuge is inside you. Enter. Shatter the darkness that shrouds the doorway. Be bold. Be humble. Put away the incense and forget the incarnations that they taught you. Ask no permission from the authorities. Close your eyes and follow your breath to that still place that leads you to the invisible path that leads you home." So now we also have a couple of housekeeping issues to deal with, and one of the most mundane but most necessary is the sharing of our wealth. And if someone, Sergio, would you mind grabbing the metal basket of ours? As we pass the basket around here locally, it's good to remind you that if you're not here or you're not able to donate here in person, you can go to our website. And as soon as you open our webpage, on the left-hand side, there's the donate button there that makes it very easy for you to donate online. But also, there's other ways that we can share our wealth, and that is by simply showing up. It's just lovely to have all of you people here today, and I find it a tremendous pile of wealth that's assembled here today, so I appreciate that. And then we also share our wealth in other ways. We share our wealth by providing offerings in terms of classes and gatherings, and in attending those gatherings and those classes as well. And so we have what's called regular gatherings here. We have gatherings virtually every day of the week, and I won't go through every single one of them, but they are on our website. They're in our website in detail, and Chiachi has done a great job of keeping us updated on upcoming events. And also, if you look on our website, you can also subscribe to our mailing list and make sure that you get updated with all that's happening here. And then sometimes we have some other upcoming gatherings. Does anyone, Sally Jo, would like to speak to some upcoming gathering?
Yeah, Joey asked me to remind people that next Sunday, after the service, and the service next Sunday will be Jamal Rahman doing his usual third Sunday, will be happening on the fifth Sunday, which is next Sunday. And after the potluck, there will be a work party for the landscaping folks, you know, who are doing maybe one, I think this might be the last work party for the fall here. And that will take place after the potluck next week. And so Joey asked that I remind folks of that. That happens periodically. And then, are there other special?
I also want to mention that next you might say, my friends, please don't forget, she's very shy, of course, that next Sunday is also Sally Jo's ordination. Okay, please do come if you.
Any other upcoming events or announcements? All right, so again, our annual discernment for this year is making a home for the mystic heart. And as I mentioned earlier, each month we select a quality or an aspect of our mystical path that helps us to focus upon that. And this, for the month of September, we've chosen mindfulness and mindful meditation with particular emphasis on breath. And many discussions about mindfulness and meditation in particular often begins with why. Why would I want to start a meditation practice? Why do I need to develop something that can seem so alien and difficult to establish, that some people think is mysterious and even esoteric? But the main reason I find in most of the books that I read on meditation and mindfulness is our shared human desire to be happy. Every one of us wants to be happy. And I read that if you ask a number of people at random, what is it you want? One might say something as simple as a new car, a new dress. Another might say a different job or a romantic relationship, whatever. But if we go further and we ask those same people, why is it did you want that? The answer from almost all those people is likely to be, because it makes me happy. The Dalai Lama states it clearly. He says, the purpose of life is to be happy. We are all the same human beings. We are born the same way, we die the same way. And we all want to lead happy lives. Now, some of us might not choose the exact word happiness. You might prefer something else, serenity or contentment, or a term that I like in particular for today's discussion is peace of mind. We picked whatever term is that best describes our feelings. Siddhartha Gautama, whose title Buddha means the awakened one, spoke of happiness in the negative. He spoke of happiness as being the elimination of suffering. And while most of us have chased after our inalienable right of pursuit of happiness, most of us has also been taught to seek that happiness through external objects, through substances, through experiences, activities, relationships. And while it's true that we do find temporary happiness in many of those experiences, having bought a new car or our new job, that happiness is fleeting in nature, and the happiness that we feel inevitably wears off, and off we go again, looking for that next opportunity to fill that sense of lack or incompleteness. Again, the Dalai Lama. The key to happiness is peace of mind. This is not something that can be bought. Inner peace has to be cultivated by each of us from within. All religious traditions whatever philosophical differences there may be among them, carry the same message of love and warm-heartedness that is the foundation of such peace of mind. And that very need to cultivate inner peace, as Dalai Lama puts it, to know lasting happiness, is precisely why we want to develop a practice of mindfulness and mindful meditation. And now Mahatma Gandhi, got a quote of his here. Mahatma Gandhi says, "Happiness is when what you think and what you say and what you do are in harmony. When we eliminate what might be called cognitive dissonance, a term that I recently learned from Sally Joe, we find that enduring happiness is what we yearn for." So the source of lasting peace and happiness then lay in the simple recognition of our own being, the understanding of our nature and of our mind. In short, it becomes clear that the peace and happiness is the very nature of ourselves, if only we're aware of it. This book was selected by Reverend Karen to serve as the companion text to our discernment for this year, Making a Home for the Mystic Heart. It is written by a self-professed student and practitioner of Tibetan Buddhism, Edward W. Bastian, and it's entitled Into Spiritual Meditation. And we follow the steps that he has in here. In each of my fourth Sunday services here, we go through the same steps that he outlines in his book. It was interesting here when Bastian was asked by his teacher why he wanted to study Buddhism. His answer was to understand the nature of mind, just as we've been talking about. His teacher, in response, says, I'm reading from the book now, "In order to understand the nature of the mind," he replied, "you must learn to meditate." He said that it was very important to develop the capacity to watch my mind while meditating. It was critically important that I learn to observe my thoughts objectively. Thoughts sneak in unnoticed and steal away my attention, distracting me from the main purpose of my meditation. He said that this type of mindfulness would be important in all aspects of my life and in all types of meditation. He called this mental capacity the mental spy. Joey touched on that earlier this month as well. The mental spy sits quietly, hidden away from the rest of the mind's activities, and it observes what's going on. Often, he said, when a thought sneaks into the mind and is seen by our internal spy, that uninvited guest becomes embarrassed and simply runs away, disappearing from the mind. That's Edward Bastian. So this device that Edward Bastian calls mental spy, in many of the books I read and what I use is pretty much the same as awareness, the simple term awareness. And we're always aware, but rarely are we attentively aware. Our thoughts and our sensations and perceptions, they tend to be inextricably entangled with and then finally lost in the content of our experience and our conditioning. To put it simply, we are rarely aware of being aware. So where do we begin? If we're following our discernment, making a home for the mystic heart, when we're talking about awareness, we're talking about how mindfulness and meditation can help us in making a home for the mystic heart. And how ultimately that takes us to our mystical realization of a unitive experience with the divine. However, not all of us may be ready for that quite yet. Some of us may feel that we have more immediate issues to deal with, managing pain, an illness, grief perhaps, or dealing with trying to reduce our stress in life, or simply getting a good night's sleep. Mindfulness and mindful meditation, I think we're going to find is useful wherever we are in our spiritual path, wherever we are in life. And so our topic this morning tells us to focus on mindfulness through the breath. So let's start looking at breath. Let's start looking at how we can cultivate awareness and mindfulness. So breathing is critically important. I don't think I'm going to get any argument there. Breathing is the only process that is regulated by our involuntary nervous system that we can have some control over. Breathing is usually automatic and subconscious. So is the beating of our heart and our digestive systems. But only breathing can be controlled voluntarily, such as when we are singing or holding our breath or just meditating and following our breath. And our breath can help us to reduce stress. At a time when we have narrowly escaped some small misfortune or unpleasantness, a single exhale is our natural inner tension reliever. We can also use our ability to control our breath to develop a mindful breathing practice. We can use it to help us relax whenever we feel any stress or anxiety. We don't need to be necessarily focused on any kind of highfalutin spiritual ideals to benefit from mindful breathing. And there are many types of breathing. Chris exposed us to one last week, I guess it was. Some are exotic, some are quite simple. One popular and extremely simple method is called vagus breathing. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. And I read on a whole bunch of these different ones, and I chose vagus breathing because not only does the FDA and the scientific community recommend it, Deepak Chopra and many of the people and teachers in our spiritual community recommend it as well. So I'm going to read this here because I can't figure this out. The vagus nerve is an essential part of what they call the parasympathetic branch of the autonomous nervous system. You all needed to know that. Okay, but what that is the branch that is not under conscious control. It's the longest, most complex of the 10 cranial nerves that connect the brain with the rest of the body. The vagus begins in the brain, and then extends downward into the lungs, the heart, the intestines, and into our muscles. Whenever the vagus nerve is stimulated by deep breathing, a person's heart rate, breathing rate, and blood pressure all decrease, reducing stress and producing a calming effect on the body. So, if you are willing, let's do this simple deep belly breathing exercise they call vagus breathing. It's simple, and we can use it anytime we feel stress or anxiety. I'll describe it to you real briefly. It's very brief. We inhale slowly, deeply through our nose to the count of 6, then exhale even more slowly through the mouth for a count of 8, pause for 1, and then inhale again. And we do this for several minutes. That's it. So, with that, again, if you're willing, please close your eyes. Focus on expanding your belly as you inhale deeply through the nose for a count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then even more slowly, breathe out through the mouth for a count of 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now pause for 1. Inhale again slowly through the nose again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhaling. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Pause. Inhale slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Pause. Inhale. And then exhale. Pause. Now continue on your own for a few breaths. Let's do one more inhale and exhale. And when you are ready, open your eyes and join the rest of us. Yeah, and I was going to touch on that in a bit, but Janine just mentioned the fact that there's ways that we can focus our breaths slightly differently to have a more beneficial effect. But I wanted to point out that right now, we've all just had an experience of stress-relieving mindful breathing practice. They call it vagus breathing. And I was going to say, as you may have found this method easy and comfortable, then again, you may not have. You know, I'm convinced that there's nothing sacred about the count of 6 or 8. The idea is to stimulate the vagus nerve. Because I read a number of different variations on this, and not all of them were 6, and not all of them were 8. And I think to Janine's point, I think what we can do is we can experiment. We can find ways to modify this in some way that we're more comfortable with, one that fits us, because if it fits us, then we're probably more likely to be sticking with it. I mean, we can practice it, we can rehearse it, and more importantly, adopt it so that it's readily available. You know, I tend to like to have a simple, nothing complex, just that simple breathing in, breathing out kind of a thing. Mine's slightly modified from that as well, as Janine was pointing out. But the point is to have it at the ready when stress is not announced. Usually, it just comes upon you, and so to have it at the ready is important for me. Whenever I'm not personally involved in a conflict or whatever it is, either a small mindful breath practice like this or Tonglen is like my go-to practices that I just go to automatically. I'm on autopilot. It's not something I think about. It's because I've rehearsed them. And so also with this vagus breathing exercise, not only do we experience stress relieving practice, we also had an experience of being keenly aware. We were watching our breath closely as we counted our breath. And we experienced the very essence of meditation. Meditation is making an intention to focus our attention. And we found that it wasn't all that difficult, it wasn't all that mysterious, it wasn't all that esoteric. And so again, wherever we are in life, we can use this kind of mindfulness, mindful breathing meditation, as a tool, and a very versatile tool as well, much like a Swiss Army knife that can cut a string, open a can, tighten a screw. Mindfulness can help us alleviate the suffering that often accompanies the physical discomfort and the pain that comes with stress, with illness, with grief, or simply the inability to get a good night's sleep. These mindful meditations provide a benefit in themselves, but they can also aid us as we awaken to the nature of our minds, as we pursue our mystical path of contemplation and self-surrender. So again, with the ultimate purpose of finding unity with the Absolute, which is, again, at the core of making a home for the mystic heart. So awareness, mindfulness, meditation, they're not some exotic practices. They're basic and natural. Awareness and mindfulness naturally arises simply from paying attention on purpose in the present moment and not being judgmental. And we can apply that same basic principle that we had in the Vegas breathing into some more expanded mindful exercises or meditation. For the purpose of convenience today, I'm going to artificially divide these exercises and meditation into two categories, outward and inward. And if you're willing, I'm going to ask that you join me in a brief outward mindful exercise. And then after a bit, Steve Crawford is going to lead us in an internal mindful meditation. So again, if you are willing, let us get comfortable. Take a nice deep breath and exhale. Stay breathing normally. Stay focused with your breath. But to begin this exercise, please don't close your eyes. Keep them open. Continue to focus on your breath, but as you do so, choose a window here in the sanctuary to look out on, one that you feel comfortable with, one that's not a strain or too bright. So choosing a window, just breathe normally, slowly beginning to notice everything that's outside there within that frame of the window you have chosen. Everyone's view will be unique. Try to move away from the normal way you might categorize what you're looking at. For example, instead of thinking tree, cloud, building, simply try to notice colors, textures, the way objects are connected with each other, how they interact, how they don't. The idea is, as you breathe, simply try to pay a little more attention to see than you normally would. Looking more like the reverence with which people look at works of art in a museum or a gallery. What is it you notice? And breathe. Pay attention to the small details, the many different things present in this tiny segment of the world you're looking at. If possible, try to see things from the perspective of someone who's completely unfamiliar with the scene you're looking at, as if you're seeing it for the very first time. Try to simply observe. Instead of making a value judgment on what you're seeing, take in the scene as it is and breathe. Take note of the interplay between that which moves and that which is fixed, between the sky behind and the terrestrial objects in front. The view may appear static, but in fact it is constantly changing with fluctuations in light, movement of air. So try to notice those subtle changes. Look at the negative spaces, the spaces between things. Even from a distance, can you notice texture? Can you the look and feel of surfaces? Set an intention to stay present, letting go of thoughts or stories in your mind as they arise, and instead focus your attention on whatever is fascinating you in your selected window and breathe. If you do become distracted, gently pull your mind away from those thoughts and notice an alluring detail in your view to put you back in the right frame of mind. And now, let's close our eyes and reconnect much more with our breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Now, try to connect with our mood, our emotions. How do we feel? Try to name the feeling. Is it relaxed? Serene? Restless? How would you describe it? And just be with that for a minute. Taking one breath at a time. This breath. And this breath. And this breath. And then, when you are ready, gently open your eyes. So now as you sit with that, we're going to have a change of pace. Continuing with our theme of outside in nature, our dear sister Elizabeth Alexander is going to play a little violin for us today and give us a musical interlude.
I chose this tune. It's called The Astros.
That was lovely, Elizabeth. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So now we're going to, as promised before, we're going to be moving from the outward to the inward. And today, to help us with that, our good friend Steve Crawford is going to come up and join us and take over the show. Okay, so.
Hello, everyone. We're here to experience our inner state. And my journey, with this started when I was in high school. I went to our public library, and I found this little yoga book at the library. And for some reason, I pulled it out and looked at it, and it talked about an exercise to quiet the mind. And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. So I brought it home, and it was very simple, and so that appealed to me. And basically, what it described is just getting in a comfortable position, didn't matter what, and to pay attention to, after you close your eyes, to pay attention to your thought stream, because most of us have inner dialogue. And it said, you'll notice that you'll be thinking, but then there'll be a space where you are not thinking. It said, concentrate on that space. And that'll last for however long it does, and then the dialogue will start again. And it said, that's okay. Just watch the dialogue go by, and after a while there'll be another space. Concentrate on the space. And what will happen if you do it regularly is that the amount of time you can stay in the space increases, and the amount of time you're in internal dialogue decreases. And so that's what I did. And it has been an amazing journey for me, because I've practiced this for the rest of my life, and now, while it's not perfect, I can, at almost any time, have no thoughts in my head. And it doesn't matter if my eyes are open or closed. And it's very useful when you're talking to somebody or you're having a conversation with them, because when I'm not speaking, I'm not thinking. And all I do is hear what they're saying. So there's no clash between, oh, I'm thinking while they're speaking, and while I'm thinking, I can't hear what they're saying. So that's what we're going to do today. And now the experience of what that is, it's interesting because we're talking about, being mindful of the inner being. Well, that is going to be a different experience for everyone. And you can call it whatever it is that you want to call it. Now, I don't associate, I'm a spiritual humanist, so I don't use God or the idea of divinity myself. But what I do use is, to describe it, if I had to describe it, it would be the wellspring of life's energy that gives me being. All right? So you can use that, you don't have to use that, whatever it is that you want to use. And you don't really have to describe it, but sometimes it's helpful if you're talking to somebody and you want to talk about it. Now, one thing that you'll notice when we go into this is that you will either hear or feel sounds. You'll either experience something in your body, or you'll hear a sound. It might be within here, it might be outside of the sanctuary. So that's okay. You don't have to respond to it. And one thing I found useful for myself is that I just sort of realized that's the energy and effort of Mother Earth and life creating the system that allows me to be alive. So it's just a supportive thing. It's not something that's in conflict with what I'm trying to do, or to be mindlessness, to be not have any thought. And I find that it is very calming. So I describe it as reaching a state of equanimity. There's no striving. And with regard to your breath, when we go into this, don't try to control your breath. Just let your breath do whatever it's going to do. You don't have to do anything. That's the idea, is that you don't do anything. You just let it happen. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to synchronize our breath. I'm going to have us synchronize our breath for like 4 breaths. And then I'm going to stop talking. And then we're going to go. Originally, when I was talking to George, I said, well, we'll go 3 minutes. George said 5 minutes. So, and then I kind of went back and forth. So I'm going to settle on 4 minutes, basically. So that's what we're going to do. And all right. So you don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to. But I am going to close my eyes in the beginning here. So, all right. So here we go. We're going to take a breath in. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more time. Inhale. Exhale. Let's synchronize our breath to exit. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One big inhale. Hold it. Exhale. That's it.
Thank you, Steve. So, each month we've been trying to expose everyone to different, let's call it techniques, practices, whatever you want to call it. But, there's been a plethora of them. The idea is that, my idea is, I'm hoping that one of them will stick. One of them will feel comfortable enough that you can become a sustainable practice. All of them leading to the same end, all of them leading to knowing of ourselves. A theme that's been around for eternity. I mean, if you go to in Delphi, I couldn't think of the name, at the Temple of Apollo. Right above the Temple of Apollo, it says, "Know thyself." And we've been repeating that in all different ways, in all different contexts, by sages through the ages, and we continue to say it today, "Know thyself." And so we have all these different practices, and I have to put a little pitch in here. You can practice this at home. You can also practice this collectively here every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. We sit here in silence, and that's what we do. We sit in silence. And to that silence, you can bring any practice you want. You can bring the type of meditation that Steve talked about. We can talk about the ones that Greg talked about from Buddhist meditation in January, and all the other meditations and contemplations that we've talked about through these months, and bring them through, in your little world inside of you, and bring it to us on Thursday evening. So that I just offer that as well. So in terms of dedication today, I ran across this thing which is, I thought, kind of interesting, to give us some kind of food for thought, of things to ponder, because it's from a woman who's right across Lake Washington from us in Kirkland. She's a spiritual counselor and author of a book called The Sensitive Soul's Guide to Spiritual Awakening. Thought that was apropos. Her name is Shanna Olmsted. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of her, but she lives here. She's a Seattleite like us. So here's what she says. Living an awakened life means to be aware as much of the time as possible that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, that we are made of loving energy, and that we are here to love and be loved. Our true essence is light and love, and striving to increase our consciousness in order to stay in this place more of the time. We are here to experience and spread joy in order to increase our own awareness and of those around us. Our guidance and support from the universe is constantly trying to get our attention and help us break through our many defense mechanisms in order to remember the goal that we agreed to. We are often too guarded and too scared of this guidance, but we are unaware of this. We believe that we really want and will believe the intuitive messages we receive, but then usually ignore or keep ourselves too busy to hear or pay attention to this natural guidance, the guidance that is everywhere all of the time. while we are unconsciously sabotaging ourselves and our spiritual growth, we do so because our ego is scared. Our personality or ego is terrified that the more authentically connected we are to our soul, the less we will need the fear-based advice from the ego that's trying to keep us, quote, safe, but really just keeping us trapped in an imaginary cage of fear. False evidence appearing real. Fear as an illusion. It is our imagination lying to us over and over in an attempt to keep us small, distracted, and disconnected from our true essence of love, expansiveness, and magnificence. It's easy to fall into the trap of mass mind thinking that life is hard, that the world keeps getting scarier. The truth is, life is meant to be easy, fun, and joyful. The world is improving and getting better and more evolved all the time. They are you, you're them. We are not wrong, and everyone is doing the most they are capable of at all times when we know better. Negative, fear-based thinking can be contagious, but with conscious awareness, it is really quite simple to rise above it and live in a magical world of sparkly stardust as the being of light that you really are. And as we more consistently incorporate daily practice into our lives, it becomes easier to stay in a more awakened, conscious state of awareness more of the time. From this state, it is much more possible to remember who we really are and not get caught up in the negative thinking and energy that's in the world around us. We are then able to live the life we are really meant to and help ourselves and those around us expand into the light as we are meant to be. And I'll close with this quotation from Deepak Chopra. The process of waking up, of paying attention to our patterns, and doing something different in life needs to be continuous. It needs to become a lifestyle. Because there is so much unconscious behavior in everyone's existence, even when seemingly everything is going our way. Nothing that is good in your present life has to be sacrificed. Waking up expands every aspect of the good life. Personal transformation is what meditation provides once you embark on the journey. So that brings us to a close for today. It's time to say goodbye to all our good friends who may be online. As we move to the time in our service we call sharing our hearts. So goodbye.